Okay, so welcome everyone, and I'm sure more people will join as we go. But yeah, so this is the Unpacked audiobook launch, virtual launch. Um, so we'll go through a few interview questions, and then I'll do a short reading uh, from the book. And this is the new cover that I updated. And we'll have a Q&A, so if you have any questions about the book, you can just write those down and let me know. And then we'll do a raffle right at the end. So I'm hoping to wrap up around 5, so just have it an hour, and Woodley should be coming in at the end. So if at any time I'm yeah, if anytime I'm frozen, just wave, and then I'll move closer to the router. So let me just make sure this is all good to go. Okay. So, first question, let me just pull it up here. So, what made you want to write Unpacked? So, it was very therapeutic. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to record it. So, before I start everything. Okay, and okay. So, record. Okay, yes, I am recording. Okay, so why, actually, sorry, let me just double check I'm recording. Record on this computer. Yeah, there we go. Okay, welcome to Unpacked, a Memoir of Checked Baggage audiobook virtual book launch. Cheers. So why did I want to write Unpacked? Basically, I had come back from Europe, and there was a lot of things to process. I had written a ton in my journal and thought certain thoughts over and over and over again. I just felt like I had to get them out on paper to kind of get out of my head. And I was in Toronto and I had signed up for a few writing courses. And actually, one of them, so I was getting a few stories out, and one of them was how to publish, how to get published. And I went to this course, this talk, and everyone else had this manuscript ready to go, and I barely had a few pages and just journal entries and blog entries. And I remember I made something up. I said like I had a manuscript and I had a young adult novel. Like I don't even know. I felt very embarrassed that I was not at this stage at all to publish. And I walked out of that seminar thinking like, oh, I have to write the book first before publishing anything. So yeah, and I just had this image of getting it all out and sharing my story because it was a really hard thing, lots of really hard things to go through and unique experiences. So I just wanted to share those to make it lighter, make the baggage lighter, you could say. So that's one reason why I wanted to write Unpacked. Oh, and I guess another is that in that relationship with Yosef, there was some, I couldn't really tell what was real. There was some gaslighting going on about, oh, I didn't say that. Never would do that, that kind of thing. And you start to question your own sanity. So I wanted to write it all down while it was fresh in my mind, so your memories don't play tricks on you to kind of change the past of what happened. I wanted kind of proof of what happened in those woods in the Pyrenees. So another question. So what do you want people to get out of the book? I want people to, if they've been in a similar situation, to have some validation in it. I remember talking to someone who had a similar relationship, and their partner at or their ex-partner at the time did a lot of similar things, and I thought it was just Yosef who did those, but actually there's certain characteristics and certain actions and words and manipulations that are very common in tumultuous relationships like that. And so I want people to read it and see the red flags, whatever they relate to with as me as a character, it's easier to see it in someone else. So I want people to get strength from it and have some validation and healing through what I went through to make it less painful. Okay, so about living off grid, how are you living now? So I was living in an off-grid cabin for 3 years, and I felt very proud of myself because I thought I couldn't live off-grid, but I can. And then when I was pregnant with Woodley last year, my partner Joel and I just realized that we needed running hot water, electricity, Wi-Fi, all of those things that I guess regular people have. And we decided to look for a place with that. And also we were up a driveway that was really steep, and in the winter you couldn't drive up. So we thought, having a baby can be overwhelming enough. We don't need kind of all those extra things to it. So I live in an RV/cabin that's on the grid, so it's still kind of rustic, but yeah, that's how I'm living now. Okay, what was the hardest part of writing the book? Well, there's some very intense moments and chapters, and yeah, just bringing myself back there because I'm so detailed, and I get so into this scene. It was very hard. It did bring me down a few times, to a depressed state, not for a long period of time, but just while I was deep in writing it and reliving those experiences and writing out the words that Yosef said to me, but I'm repeating them again. And it happened again with the audiobook too. So the Unpacked, the first edition, came out in June 2019 on my 33rd birthday, June 11th. And after the big book launch, I put it away for a bit, and I couldn't revisit the recordings until this past around Christmas time. And I had a hard time listening to it, for sure, because some of the moments are the worst moments of my life, and I have them out there, and it does bring me back to those moments. And as some readers have mentioned, it does bring them into these moments too with me. So it's not like it doesn't affect me, but I've worked through a lot by writing it and having my story out in the world. So it's helped me more than it's hindered me. But it was, there's a few chapters. Chapter 52. There's a few chapters that were the hardest to write, for sure. And also re-listening to the sex scenes were like kind of cringing of like, oh my God, Aly, what did you do? But it's fine. It's out there. It's fine. So, you gave up on
society. Supporting documents.
Oh, hello? I guess if everyone wants to go on mute, that would be helpful. Okay, you gave up on society and moved to a commune. Did you ever feel like you were in a cult? That's one of the questions. Sometimes. It felt like a cult of two, basically. it there was some culty, doomsday, December 21st, 2012, prophecy, moving to the mountains vibe. And I did feel, I mean, Yosef is a very kind of radical thought person and was so strong in his beliefs, and I followed along with a lot. I was just learning all these new things, and then along with that came a lot of things that I look back on that weren't right. But yeah, so it felt like a cult of two, basically. That's the answer to that question. But I got out of it. Okay. What did the role of addiction play in your memoir? I found I was actually addicted to Yosef. Like I didn't really realize you could be addicted to someone. But even rewatching the video that I put as the ad for the audiobook, it's so much of him and not, there's only one photo of me. And that's a video I took of the Pyrenees and made a video in 2012 of my time there. And I just would get so anxious to not be around him. And I worked in Amsterdam and I would just need to be around him to feel calm and at ease. And any other time I would be anxious. And yeah, there was a lot, there was some, and then, there's experimenting with drugs and alcohol and sex. And um, I think some of the reasons I put it all in there was because I just wanted to be totally open about that journey that I went on, and learning from it now. Like I hope it's coming from a place where I've learned these lessons through trial and error and learning the hard way, but coming out of it. I mean, I guess you always think you're naive in the past. You don't think you're being naive in the moment. But yeah, there was just the lifestyle I was having. It's hard to say when I was healthy. Like in Amsterdam, I was biking every day and walking every day, and I was in great physical shape in a way, but also smoking weed all the time and experimenting with all sorts of things, and and tired all the time as well. So in that way, it wasn't healthy. But then when I was at the farm, I was also, yeah, still biking. Just in the Netherlands, you bike all the time, but I wasn't doing drugs or barely drinking, but not in a healthy relationship. And the relationship with the hypersexuality I wanted to show in the book as well, as to make the reader a little feel disturbed about it, because there were a lot of disturbing moments that some I didn't even realize until I was writing it, that it was a disturbing moment that was deep in my psyche. Do you see this memoir as a comedy or a tragedy? A little bit of both. I really try to have comedic moments to break the tension. Yeah, there was one line that always kind of made me laugh when I was reading it, is there's so much built up to moving to the Pyrenees and the end of the world to 2021 or 2012, and I don't even know if the world is ending, but I'm like sitting kind of looking out to the mountains, and I'm like, I guess I'd rather be here. Like I'm picturing like the world on fire, and I don't know if I'd rather be where I was. I know, dark humor, I guess, but it definitely got me through a lot. Okay, I'll just do one more question from this interview, and Okay, any more memoirs in the future? So I'd like to. I'd like to write a memoir, although my parents said I should just write fiction from now on. But I'd like to write a memoir about starting a business and all the things I did wrong. So, and dating on an island as well. Before Joel, I mean, yeah, it's hard writing a memoir. You end up writing about other people too. But yeah, I want to call it Invested, and the subtitle will be How to Run a Business, and then in brackets it'll say Into the Ground. I mean, the business is doing well now, but there are so many mistakes along the way. So that will be my next one at some point. I'm not putting any pressure on it. So yeah, so that is the interview questions. Maybe why don't we do Q&A now, and then I'll do a reading, just so we can break up me talking so much. I'll just double check that no one else is trying to get in. Are there any questions from the audience? You can either type them in the chat or jump on and then, yeah. I'll see you on Facebook as well. Thanks, Johnny. Johnny Angel says, thank you for being so soul brave and sharing your experience and story and hard work creating a book. Thanks, Johnny. Okay. Well, Bev, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to find out about your experience making an audiobook and why you wanted to do that and how you went about recording it and editing it and all that stuff.
Yeah, good question. As you know, it's a lot of work. So when I had a podcast, 2019 was a very productive year for me. I went to the Gulf Islands community radio station every week, interviewed an entrepreneur, and put it out on iTunes. So I just stayed late. I did 2 sessions, 2 kind of 8-hour sessions. And that was tricky because it's so hard on your voice. And, there's so many variants of like Scottish, Irish, Swedish accents. I had to look up how to say all these things. But so I did 2 recording sessions, and then it just sat on my computer for about a year and a half. And then I recorded on Audible, and then I edited it on Audible. And then that took ages because the faster you read it, the longer you edit it. And I had to edit out all these mumbles and fumbles and weird creaky chair noises. So all of that's out of the recording. And then I have a friend who is a producer, and I met up with him to master the files because I wanted a professional to go over them to make sure that they were good for Audible. And I went through ACX, the Amazon Exchange. That's not right. AudioBook Exchange. That they listen through it and distribute it to Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. And that took about a month. And it's on my website as well. So I have the MP3s. So basically a lot of DIY, a lot of long hours, re-listening, late nights, just going through and looking at sound waves and doing my best to link it all together. So I learned a lot, definitely, in the process. And it helped having my friend master it, because it actually does sound quite professional. I can't listen to it again because I've listened to it so many times, but I made sure all the files were correct, the beginnings and the ends, and now I can just like let it out to the world and and move on, because yeah, it's definitely something I want to move on from. So yeah, that's my audiobook experience. Oh, thanks, Emily, for saying that. You are inspirational and one of the strongest women I've ever known. So proud of you. Thanks, Em. So let me just check if there's any other questions.
I've got another question.
Sure. Yeah, so please.
Now that you're a mom of a daughter, do you look upon your past life differently, or do you think, okay, I'm glad I went through that experience so I can give to my daughter, or do you go, oh my God, what did I do? I hope she never goes through that, or does it just change your perspective on it?
I definitely hope she won't go through that. I hope she'll learn from my mistakes. It's also, yeah, I mean, I guess it's a thought of years down the line. I don't want to like embarrass her with her friends of her mom's steamy, raunchy memoir. Yeah, I guess you always want your kids to learn from your mistakes. And I guess it's reflecting on my own teenagehood too, not really taking the advice that was given to me in many ways. Yeah, it's the sense of protection for sure. And I mean, I want Woodley to explore and be independent, but I really want to instill in her, I guess, the sense of self-confidence and have an example of a relationship that she can model with Joel. And Joel is such a good guy that I'm hoping, I guess, there's only so much you can do, but I'm hoping that she will feel confident enough to have these relationships where she's treated well and doesn't need to go through the years of abuse, basically, that to get to out the other side. So that's what I hope for her. But yeah, it was an interesting thing seeing a memoir. I'm trying to remember. Great grandfather wrote a memoir, and I found it on my last trip across Canada at my parents' place. And in the front, he said, it's to my grandchildren. And then I'm like, if I'm reading this, like, will my great grandchildren be reading this story too? Because once the book is out, it has its life of its own. So, but no regrets. I don't regret going through it, and I don't regret writing it, because I'm so happy with where I'm at in my life now. I had to go through all those things, I guess, to get to where I am now. And I'm ready to settle down, and I'm ready to have one partner and kids and a stable home. And maybe I'd feel a bit of wanderlust if I didn't spend all those years going from one place to another. So, if there's any other questions, I'll do a reading. I'll just double check. Okay. Just have a little sip.
The question, because you can shift on.
John has a question.
Okay.
John has a question. So in the book, you begin to talk about a fictionalized story. You remember an event of the hostel and somebody. Do you want to revisit some of those characters in a fictional form to tell the story of the many different people you met that you're removed from? Follow that question? Is it moving into fiction from memoir to fiction?
Yeah, I haven't. I've dabbled in fiction a bit, but I just find I just write true to life so much better. or if the fiction, I call it fiction, but it's me in a extended way. So the friends at the hostel, I did meet up again for a 10-year reunion at the end. That's why actually I published the book how I did. I self-published because we had a 10-year reunion in Croatia, September 2019, and it was being planned for a year or 2 years in advance. And I just thought I need to have the book done in order to get to these people. And it's a very odd experience to have. We had a book launch, and they read their lines that I wrote, and they'd been living in my head for so long. So that was a kind of a trip. But if I wrote a fictional, I mean, so many wild things happened. I just don't even think I would need to have it fictionalized, really, because it was us all kind of living out our wild 20s together in a wild city. And yeah, so I don't see myself really doing fiction, even with the characters, although it was nice to revisit them in my head. Hard to do the accents, though. I wouldn't do that again. Okay. Any more questions? All right. So I'm going to read Chapter 5, Broken Nerves, February 10th, 2013, Osh and Olot, the Pyrenees. And I'll just make sure everyone is on mute and there's no other questions. Okay. It's just a couple pages, and then we'll do the raffle. A car pulls up in front of the restaurant where we wait in Osh. It's a rusty, late 80s two-door with no functional seatbelts, but heading to Olot, so we jump in. The driver with short hair at the front and dreads down his back chats idly while I nod at tone variations in his voice, pet Peytona perched on my lap, and look out the window into darkness. In the town, Gael and I go to Les Sophia's apartment. She is part of the Romas, but doesn't squat houses anymore. Now she has a job, a child, and pays rent. I've been at Les Sophia's once before to charge my laptop and use the internet. Crouched in a child's chair and desk in the playroom, I checked emails, devouring information from the outside world. In return for the stay at her house tonight, I will give her a packet of ginger candies I made to sell through a farmer at the market. After not showering for months, I savor the warm water that runs down my body and washes away sweat, dirt, soot, and stress. The only way to bathe at my house in the mountains is to boil water on the open fire, pour it into a small metal tub mixed with cool water carried from the pond. It's a full morning's work that I only managed to do a couple times, shivering in the tub by the fire with my knees up to my chin. I could never get my long blonde, once wavy hair clean, and 2 dreads have formed at the back of my head. I have thought of getting a full head of dreads more than once, because it's easier just to give up on washing my hair altogether. The dirt collects at the bottom of the tub that I sit in, while I hold the shower head above me. It's a European shower, which is a bathtub with a removable head. The first time I used one was traveling in Italy. I awkwardly squatted while I held the shower head with one hand and sudsed up with the other, sometimes having to hold it between my knees to try not to get the floor wet. 5 years later, and I sit in the tub, crouched over my knees and let the water make paths down the grooves of my body. It's only been 4 months off the grid, but I'm already amazed at how easy it is to get hot, continuous water simply by turning on a tap. I must live in a place where these things exist, I whisper to bolster my resolve to leave. I shampoo and rinse my hair twice and suds up my body. My frame is normally petite, but I feel the outline of my ribs. My shoulder blades seem bony. Even my bum is less cushioned than I'm used to. I wonder how much weight I've lost from my diet of non-processed food, only occasional glass of wine, and constant exercise mixed with a deep depression. I sit under the flow of hot water for a little while longer, with a profound sense of comfort and renewal. I don't want the shower to end. I finally step out, rinse the dirt ring that coats the tub, and put on the cleanest t-shirt and underwear I could pack. Gael and La Sofia have gone to bed, so I go to the kitchen and plug in my laptop, amazed at the feeling of warm floors and heat hissing out of the baseboards. After I check some emails and skim Canadian news headlines, I look briefly at flights from London to Toronto, just to get an idea of how much my freedom could potentially cost me monetarily. I find a couple for 400 Canadian dollars, which is just the amount I have in my bank account. I take a breath and tell myself I won't book anything just yet. I need to sleep on it one more night to make my final decision. Before we meet the guy who we're buying the van from, before signing a year of insurance papers on the vehicle, before I lose my nerve and stay tortured with Yosef. In bed with sheets that smell of baby powder, I imagine that this is how it could be from now on if I decide to leave. No more cuddles with Yosef or Bo, with a warm body next to mine that matches my breath to theirs. I roll onto my stomach, arms under the pillow and one leg outstretched as far as it can go. I haven't been able to sleep like this in over a year. My body always conformed to Yosef's or the various pets that slept in the bed with us. The next morning, my nerves jolt me upright. I relax when I realize I'm not in the Valley of Monars. I don't have to worry about what I had forgotten to do, not have to face an angry man in work mode. I hesitate to get dressed. I feel so clean, and to put on clothes covered in a fine layer of dust, dirt, and smells of campfire and goat make me cringe. I have coffee and a common Spanish breakfast of toasted baguette with butter, and look over the list of supplies I need to get before the shops close for siesta time at 2. The shopping list. 2 kilos of rolled oats, half a kilo of banana chips, 3 large pieces of ginger, 2 lemons, a kilo of brown sugar, 3 bags of coffee beans, 4 drums of tobacco, 10 packs of rolling papers, 2 packs of sugar beet seeds, 1 liter of vinegar, 1 liter of wine, elastics, 50 euros of phone credit, a roll of tape, and some apples. The to-do list. Write down how to make soy yogurt. Sort out canceling Dutch health insurance. Save songs for songbook. Check when to seed chickpeas. Cut out soap recipe for recycled palm oil. Pick up palm oil from restaurant. Check Yosef's emails. Buy more English novels. I pause, scratch that out, and write, buy Yosef Dutch novels. At the end I add, book flight. After running from shop to shop for the supplies, I'm anxious from broken nerves and too much coffee. Most of my errands done, I sit and eat a cheese baguette at a cafe beside the market. Spanish cuisine doesn't cater much to vegetarians. I do on occasion eat wild game, or if I'm on the farm in which the animal was raised, but I mostly eat vegetarian. But in Spain, most people laugh at the word as if I've made it up. I see Lucia approach, a woman who had recently left our community with her partner and child. The Valley of Monars is too far away from any school, so no family can stay there for long since it's illegal in Spain to homeschool without a special permit. I'm the only girl in the community because the pattern has been that women arrive, fall in love, have a child, then move to a town with their new family and find a job to pay the rent. ¿Qué tal? How are you? Lucia smiles and kisses me on both cheeks. I can't hold in my emotions any longer. I had already been short with a farmer lady who sells my ginger candies, scared that I would explode into tears and wails at her booth at the market if I said anything more than, fine. I also had to nod with my mouth clamped shut when 2 other women told me they had a distiller for herbs to make essential oils, and offered to make a plan for me to come over to use it. I wanted to tell them everything, right there at the market, in front of everyday people who live in heated homes, spend their Saturdays at farmers markets, watch television in the evenings, who have long meals with their friends and family in the middle of the afternoon, who laugh, drink beer, and eat tapas. I wanted them to hear my suffering and help me. Not good, Lucia. Not good, I say in broken Spanish and a quivering lip. Her expression shifts from the confusion to not hear the regular response of bien, y tú? To a face of concentrated sadness. I think I go out of Monars to Canada. I'm very, very sad. Oh, my dear sweet La Aly, she hugs me. Monars is too macho, too harsh for a sweet girl like you. What happened? She pulls me aside at the corner of the cafe. Everything. I'm not happy there or with Yosef is bad. Fights every day. I miss family, my friends. I don't know what I do. You can live in another village in the mountains with women and children. You would be happy there. No, no, I go to Canada. Oh, Lucia, I think I go away from Yosef. I start to cry and my voice strains and cracks. I need my independence. Many fights. He's not good for me. Very negative. Strong with work. Only think about work in the garden. I shake my head and look at the floor, frustrated that I still can't express myself completely in Spanish. She reaches her arms around me and rubs my back. I look up at her to see my pain reflected in her eyes. She asks, "Is it really that bad with El Yosef?" So, that is the end of chapter 5. And if you'd like to hear more of the book, you can go to barefootdaughter.com/unpacked, and it has all the links to the audiobooks.